My name is Howie Heckman, one of the developers here at PTS. I'm just going to walk you through kind of a little demonstration about TracerPlus running on an Android device. I'm going to go from building the application within TracerPlus Desktop, deploying that to the Android-based device, which could be a Dolphin 7800, and then to show you kind of how we're moving between the Windows mobile OSs and the Android devices. So before I get started there, I just have a little bit of a presentation on my PowerPoint here. So let me go ahead and bring that up. And just to show you kind of where we're at with our development of TracerPlus 8.0. And again, at the end of this webinar, if anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in your questions and question and answer panel. We'll try to get to as many as possible. So before I jump into the live demonstration, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the current PTS mobile market and really kind of stress how we're moving from our Windows-based devices onto these newer Android-based devices. And a lot of the enterprise-class devices still are largely focused on Windows Mobile and CE, and that's because a lot of customers have a lot invested in those devices, a lot of applications that have been built for Windows Mobile-based devices, and their employees are trained on those devices. So there still is a large market for the Windows-based devices, but we're starting to see many new Android devices coming to market, and that includes the Honeywell 7800 and others. These devices have been kind of pushed by a lot of the employees wanting to use maybe the Android-based devices that they're familiar with and use them in the enterprise space. So build on the enterprise functionality like a barcode scanner or things like that. So that's kind of why we're introducing our TracerPlus 8.0 product with Android support. It'll allow you to kind of migrate some of your existing Windows-based applications to these newer Android devices that are coming to market. So that was kind of our goal with TracerPlus 8.0. We want to continue our support for Windows Mobile. We don't want to stop supporting Windows Mobile. The product will grow with that operating system as well, but we're going to introduce support now with 8.0 with these newer Android devices. And in doing so, we want to make that OS choice seamless. So many customers already have an existing application, an existing system running on the Windows Mobile-based devices, but maybe they want to slowly introduce or add on top of those applications with an Android-based device. And so TracerPlus 8.0 is going to try to solve that by making that switch seamless. You can really deploy the same applications that you have running on your Windows-based devices to the Android-based devices. And in doing that, you can still use your same design tool, TracerPlus Desktop, and you can still use your same syncing tools, the tool that moves your data to and from these mobile devices out into the field to that back-end database or Excel spreadsheet or something like that. You can still use that same application. And as far as those two tools are concerned, it doesn't care which handheld is syncing the data back and forth. It's really just moving data to and from either a Windows device or maybe, in a new case, an Android-based device. So you can take that same investment that you had with your Windows Mobile applications and port them over to an Android device with minimal effort, really just reloading the application onto the new Android device. Okay, so just before I get into the demonstration here, I did want to make mention that the first beta is available this Friday. So anyone that wants to contact us and get the link as soon as this Friday, we will have that download available. You can deploy the application to these Android-based devices, and you can begin taking your existing TracerPlus Desktop projects and deploy them to those devices as well. At the end of this webinar, I'm going to have an email address for anybody that's interested. They can send us an email, and we'll get you that link as soon as possible. Okay, so now I'm just going to jump into a demonstration of TracerPlus Desktop and kind of the changes that have now been incorporated to support the Android operating system. So I'm going to hop out of the PowerPoint here and go open TracerPlus Desktop. Okay, and I have it here. Now TracerPlus Desktop, you'll see this, and it looks will probably look familiar to many people that have developed TracerPlus applications for their Windows-based devices. This is the home screen here, and this is version 8.0. So you can see it looks very similar. You still have your Search Online Samples button, and I usually like to mention this at the beginning of the webinars. You can go out to our online library of pre-built applications, and you can search different applications here that we have all set up for you and free to download. So sorted by category, so you can look at asset tracking applications. You can look at different inventory applications and so on. You can see what those forms look like that would be loaded onto the mobile device. So here you can see this is a medical equipment tracking application. Now this was originally built for a Windows-based enterprise scanner. This application you can go ahead and download as is off of our website and deploy it to your Android device. And basically the only difference in that process is when you're doing the deployment, you select Android as opposed to Windows to deploy to. So that same application that was already built for Windows Mobile or Windows CE-based devices can now be deployed to an Android device. Okay, so really you can just kind of navigate this library. It's always good for people that are first learning TracerPlus and want to start off with something that's pre-built. They can kind of search this library here and find what they need and go ahead and download it and continue testing their mobile device. So here you can see a package tracking application. This one would allow you to maybe use the 7800's BarCode scanner, scan packages, and go ahead and sign for those packages as you need them. And this application, again, works for both Windows-based devices as well as the Android-based devices. So I'm actually going to jump over to one that I've modified a little bit already. I have open in my project, so I'm going to cancel out of this import. So here you can see I have TracerPlus Desktop open again. I have a project called Trailer Safety Inspection, and I just labeled this one Droid, because the only change that I made to this application, if I go to my trailer inspection form, is I increased the resolution for my form here. So this form, you can see, is set up to do trailer safety inspections, and you can kind of jump through the form and see the different pieces of the inspection form that I have designed here. So I have different items that are to be inspected with checkboxes as to whether or not they fail. Second page, or the third page, I should say, is similar. And the last page allows you to actually fill out a text area, so you can enter a lot of information, description of the inspection. You can also take a number of photos for this inspection. So if the trailer happens to be damaged in any way, you can take pictures of it. And then you can collect a signature at the end of this inspection and save that information to your database. If you scroll to the bottom here, you can see the Save Inspection form. I also, in this case, added a sync form, a sync button. And what this does is at the end of filling out this form, performing the inspection, taking pictures, and collecting the signature, you can go ahead and hit the sync button. It's going to push that information wirelessly over to TracerPlus Connect, which then can send that data to an Excel spreadsheet, an ODBC database like SQL Server or Microsoft Access or something like that, or MySQL, or even just a simple text file if you wanted to do that way, to tab delimited text file. Okay? But at this point, you really could go ahead and move this form around. If you wanted to add maybe a company logo, you can do that. You can move and change, maybe add additional fields that you'd like to add to this inspection form. And again, this form originally came from our website and was designed for a Windows-based device originally. And the only change that I made was I made the screen bigger, because a lot of the Android devices have larger screen resolutions than some of the Windows-based devices. Okay, so basically what I want to do at this point is after I'm done designing the form and moving and changing the layout, here's an image that'll be looked up. I just want to go to the Tools, Build, Deploy option here. Okay, and this is the one difference now between version 8 and version 7 when you're deploying to a mobile device. From the Deploy screen, you'll notice that there's a new Select Platform dropdown. Okay, and you can switch between Windows Mobile or Android, and then when you go ahead and do the deploy, it'll search for the first connected device for that platform and deploy the application to it. So many of you may be familiar with the Windows Mobile. If I were to go ahead and select Windows Mobile, I could deploy this, and it would deploy through the cradle to a connected Windows Mobile-based device. Or if I now want to switch to Android, I just switch this drop-down to Android, and then I select how I'm deploying it to that Android. In some cases, you can use this Android debug bridge, or in other cases, if it connects as like a USB drive, you would select the drive here, and it'll deploy it to that that location on your PC. Okay, so that's really the only change you're making when you're deploying between a Windows-based device, or say a Dolphin 7800 Android-based device. You're just switching that platform there and just hitting the deploy button again, and then it's going to go through that same deployment process that's done similar to Windows Mobile as it now with the Android device. Okay, so I have an emulator set up on my PC here that I'm going to go ahead and show you that has the trailer inspection form already deployed. And I'm going to go ahead and slide this over here. Now this should look familiar to many people that have already used TracerPlus. This is the launcher screen, and it looks similar to the Windows mobile-based screens. And we were really kind of trying to make that the case. We wanted to make everything that gets deployed to the Android device look very similar to how it would look when you have deployed it to a Windows mobile-based device. So there's no difference in learning how the application works from the end user, the employee. They don't have to learn, okay, if I'm using this 7800 today, I have to use it this way, or if I'm using another one, a Windows-based device, some other day, the application is different. So really, when you deploy these applications, they'll look the same on the Android-based device and also behave the same. So all of the features that you've developed for the Windows device will work the same on the Android side. So you can see here I have my trailer inspection form, or trailer inspection in this data entry tab. This will actually open the form that I've designed that you can see in desktop here. If I click on the View Data tab, I'm able to see the data that's been collected using that form. Okay, so that would open up some table view of all of the different items that have been collected or saved on the mobile device and have not yet been synced back to like a pre-existing database or system. Okay, so if I jump back to data entry here, I'm going to go ahead and open the form, and the first thing you'll notice is it should look the same as what I have designed in desktop here. So you can see the form looks pretty much the same background color. You can see all of the controls that I've added to it. This box here is actually an image that's looked up when you scan the trailer, so that you can see the trailer that you're inspecting. Maybe make just a visual verification that it's the correct trailer. All right, after you scan it, you can go ahead and scroll through the rest of this form, and you can see all of the different pieces of information that have been added to this inspection. There's navigation buttons, so you can navigate the form by hitting the navigation buttons there. And then the last page here, you can see, is where I can take the photos. If I were to click the photo button here, let's say we load it up on our 7800 device, Honeywell 7800 device, this would upload the camera of the device. You can take a picture, go ahead and take a picture of the damage, save that information, collect the signature, and then save that inspection. And that's going to behave the same way if you have a Windows-based device with a camera as well. So you'll be able to press those buttons, take a picture, and save it for the inspection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and back, maybe just show you some of how this form works. Some of these look a little bit different than Windows Mobile, but they behave the same. So let's say I wanted to select my inspector here. You can see I have John Smith and Howie H as my inspectors. I can go ahead and select them. So just as Windows Mobile, you can do that. You can set up filter drop-down lists if you'd like. So you can filter a drop-down, maybe a make and a model type drop-down. So if you were to pick a make of a vehicle make, and then it'll filter the next drop-down to a model, you can do things like that. All of the features that are built with Windows Mobile, you can then port over to Android as well, just by deploying it to that platform. For the trailer ID here, on the 7800, we could go ahead and scan this, scan a barcode for that trailer ID. So the trailer ID that I entered here happens to be 1001. When I go ahead and scan 1001, it looks up what our trailer looks like. Now, I didn't have a trailer available to me when I was setting this demo up here, but you can see our Honeywell van, our PTS Honeywell van here is ready to ship 7800s and TracerPlus to everybody in the world. So it looks up the van, and you can kind of verify whether or not that's the correct van that you're doing the inspection for. You can continue on with this inspection and go ahead and use this application just as you would on a Windows mobile-based device. Okay, so I can just continue down the form here and perform my inspection. Okay, I'm just going to jump to the end. At the end, just as you would in Windows Mobile, you go ahead and save the inspection. It's going to go ahead and submit that to the database. You can see the record count here went from 21 to 22. And now you can go ahead, if you wanted to, and go back to the View Data form on the launcher screen by hitting the Home button here and review the information that was submitted to the database. So if I were to go to the trailer inspection here, I think I have another number of other records within my database. But you can go ahead now, and you can see these last two records that I filled out has the current date, the inspector that was performing the inspection, as well as the other information that was saved. You could select this information if you'd like to and edit it as well. Okay, now all of the features, again, that are available in Windows Mobile are also available in Android. So if I wanted to set up something like a sync, you saw at the end there that I added this sync button to our application. Now this sync button is configured in the same way that it is within the Windows Mobile side. So when I added that to my form, I just basically configured it in the same way that it was available on the Windows side. And what that does is it's actually going to start the sync to TracerPlus Connect. And TracerPlus Connect is going to send that data or pull that data from where you've set that up. So I'm going to open up TracerPlus Connect here just so you can see that for those that may not be familiar. Now, this is TracerPlus Connect. It's the syncing tool used for the TracerPlus mobile devices. Okay. So what you can see in this is I have one sync process set up right now. And the sync process is set up to send data from this ODBC access database to TracerPlus on the device. And so that means every time I trigger this sync, anything in this database table here is going to get sent to TracerPlus on the mobile device, which is session 2, which happens to be the trailer list. So I actually used this sync here to push trailer information to the handheld so that when somebody scans a barcode, the trailer ID, it'll look up the correct information and displays our PTS Honeywell van on the form. Okay? If you wanted to then set up something maybe to download the information that you've collected on the mobile device, you would add a new sync process, maybe call it download inspections. Okay? And in this case, you're going to be setting up the sync from TracerPlus on the mobile device to your back-end database or Excel spreadsheet or something like that. So the source here is going to be TracerPlus, which runs on the mobile device. My session will be session 1 because that's the first session in our project called trailer inspection. Okay, and the destination then is where we're going to send that data after the inspection is complete. So you can select something like an ODBC database. It's any type of database where an ODBC driver is available, something like SQL Server or Oracle or Microsoft Access. Okay, you can also use something like Microsoft Excel. If you want to send all of the inspection data that was collected from the handhelds to an Excel spreadsheet, you can do that as well, or even just a simple text file. So here I'm just going to go ahead and maybe select an ODBC database table. And then what you really do is you're just going to select from this drop-down the database you'd like to sync it to. Now this drop-down is populated with all of the databases in the system. It could be any Microsoft Access database, SQL Server database, anything like that, and you'll see it in the list here. So you might pick something like your inspection database. So maybe you have a database that's available that already accepts inspections, and you can send your information to that. You would go ahead and select that from this drop-down here. And when you do that, you're then presented with all of the tables in that database. So now you're selecting the destination, the final table that's accepting all of these inspections that are being sent over through the synchronization process to that destination table. So you would go ahead and select that here. So that now when you go ahead and fire this sync process, it's taking every inspection that the user out in the field, every inspection that they've collected to this ODBC database table. Or just maybe an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. So if I change this to Excel, I could now select the workbook I'd like to send it to and the worksheet. So every time a mobile worker hits that sync button on the form, that's coming wirelessly to this TracerPlus Connect product and pushing it into that destination. So that would allow you to move the data around. And you can set up as many of these sync processes as you'd like, so you're moving the data back and forth. And the important thing to note here is that many of you maybe have already been using TracerPlus Connect on the Windows side. For Android, there's no difference in the TracerPlus Connect product other than it being version 8. It will accept those sync requests from either handheld running either operating system. So you may have the same inspection form on a Windows-based device and you just want to add to it now with these Android devices. You can slowly incorporate those Android devices and send that data back to the database table that you have mapped, and it's going to send that information and it doesn't care about the operating system. So there's really no additional configuration with those Android-based devices. Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of everything I wanted to show you here. I think I'm getting word that we still don't have Mika on the line. But if you can just hold for 1 second, everyone, and I do apologize. I will just double check on that, and then I'll come right back to the webinar here for questions.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're calling from. So again, my name is Mika Majapuro, and as stated, I'm a manager in our product marketing group, and I really have a handful of offerings that I manage, but I mainly focus on offerings where we try to take the best from consumer world, meaning pocketability, modern UIs, design, and so on, but also we want to take the best elements from fully rugged offerings, so focusing on durability, barcode scanning, and long battery life. And I also focus on our operating system strategy, and obviously those are the 2 points that I want to cover today. I do want to mention that we're always very eager to hear back from you what is happening in the field, what problems you're seeing, what opportunities you're seeing. So feel free to log those questions or comments in the chat panel or call or email me afterwards. I definitely want to hear your opinion about things as well. If we go to the next slide, so very quickly I'll show you what is the agenda for today. So I'll go quickly over who is Honeywell, why we think that we have a fairly unique position in the industry. I talk about the key verticals that Honeywell Scanning Mobility, who we go after. And then I'll go a little bit deeper into how customer expectations are changing, how that impacts our portfolio, and finally I'll end with a couple of words about the Dolphin 7800 and why Android might be good for your group. So if you go to the next slide, just a couple of words about Honeywell. So we are almost a $40 billion company, and we focus on the global megatrends that we all know and experience every day, so safety, security, energy, and productivity. The beauty of being part of a large group like Honeywell is that we share best practices and innovations across the entire group. So for example, our avionics group has done a lot of studies about how to use touch panels in an environment where the user is moving, for example. And those kind of learnings can be applied to our handheld offerings as well. Similarly, we have a group that focuses on building extra strong materials. And of course, that gives us a unique opportunity to leverage those findings in our handheld computers again. So the beauty is that there's a lot of talent and innovation happening at the corporate level. And typically when we go to a customer, we can take a very helicopter view of their business and the problems that they're facing. So we might go to a customer and start talking about our barcode scanners and then end up building a better store for them that's more energy efficient than their previous store, for example. So a lot of goodness happening at the corporate level. And then if you go to the next slide, so a little bit about Honeywell Scanning Mobility. So who are we? So we really focus on data collection and making our customers more productive. We have basically 3 groups that we tackle. So we have a group that focuses on ruggedized mobile computers. We have another group that focuses on scanners, and then we have a very strong software portfolio as well, something that's very important when we start talking about Android and remote device management. But here on this slide you can see the key verticals that we serve. So field sales and services, very important area for us, transportation, logistics, retail, healthcare, and warehousing. And all these areas, if you look at the pictures or think about the use cases, so obviously device failure simply is not an option when you're dealing with in these verticals. If the user drops the device and the device breaks, then now you can all imagine what's going to happen next. The user has to go back to the office and get a new one, wait in the field to get a replacement unit, or then complete the day with paper and pen, for example. And then if you start putting numbers around these, you understand the business impact that the initial purchase price of the unit is completely irrelevant. It's more about the business productivity side. So having said that, if we move to the next slide, the reality is that we are seeing a lot more hardware kind of form factors and devices entering our field. So anything from tablets to consumer devices or consumer devices with some type of covers on. And it's very interesting. People talk about this, but at the same time, people who have implemented consumer devices in a ruggedized environment, they have very quickly realized that again, as I said, the total cost of ownership simply isn't there, and you're really impacting your business when field employees are not getting their job done. So obviously a lot for our customers to think about. All of these devices come with their pros and cons, whether you're talking about durability, weight, screen size, and so on. Similarly, if you go to the next slide, the way people interact with these devices is changing, and the way you manipulate and edit data, for example, is changing. It used to be a physical keyboard and maybe stylus, and now you're seeing more and more full touch devices entering the marketplace. And also some people are testing voice control devices. And again, as in the previous slide, all of these have their pros and cons. So keypad, of course, is very nice, but if you want to keep the same form factor, well, now you're limiting your screen real estate. Full touch takes care of that one. Now you have bigger screen, but using the display can be a little bit difficult with gloves on, for example. And finally, voice. I personally feel that voice is maybe a couple of years away. There are still issues with the software and background noise and all the different accents, for example. And then if you happen to be working at a hospital, for example, well, now privacy becomes an issue, and you might not be able to talk about all the things that you would want to talk or enter data by using your voice. And moving on to the next slide, so now if we're talking about kind of related again to how you interact with the device, so obviously operating system is the window to your offering. And here I have two graphs. On top you have the smartphone operating system shares per Gartner from 2011, and below you have the AIDC market, or the ruggedized computer market. And on purpose I didn't update the Gartner data here because I thought it would be interesting to see where the forecast was a couple of years ago. And we all know that Android, for example, is much more popular. It's actually over 60% of the market, and Microsoft has not started taking off yet. In fact, the market share for Microsoft smartphone operating system is probably less than 3%, or could be 1 point something. So kind of the forecast that was done in 2011 is a little bit wrong in that sense. The bottom line, however, is that the smartphone market, we're definitely seeing that that's driving user expectations when it comes to using a ruggedized device. And that's why you see BDC, who is a research company, they were forecasting that Android would take off very rapidly in the AIDC market. And we're definitely seeing movement towards Android, but it's not perhaps happening as quickly as what the forecast again said here. But definitely there's a ton of interest, and that's why we're here to talk to you about Android. So if we go to the next slide then, so obviously in order to match the changing user expectations and the operating system and all that, we are basically having to adjust our portfolio as well. So we are now focusing on 4 different areas. On top, you have the supply chain offerings. So these are the devices that are being used in warehouses, for example. So we have wearable computers and tablets and ruggedized devices that come with heaters, for example. Then we have the more traditional, the fully rugged industrial class handheld. So these are devices that UPS, for example, would use when they deliver a package for you. You would sign the delivery with a R99EX device, for example. And then towards the bottom, we have the hybrid offerings that I manage and what we focus on here today. So again, the goal with those was to take the best elements from those fully rugged offerings and also from consumer class devices, and see if you can make smart and intelligent compromises and create something fairly unique in the marketplace. And finally, on the bottom, we have consumer class devices. So obviously, we don't make the hardware, but we make specialized accessories for Apple devices, for example. So if your group has decided that, hey, we want to use Apple for one reason or another, we can then give you specialized cases that increase your battery life, your durability, and we add the leading barcode capabilities into that package as well. But again, if we go to the next slide, so as I stated, I'll focus on the hybrid computers, and that's where the 7800 really comes to play. And sorry, this seems to be a build-up slide, so if you hit a couple of times and we'll get the build. That's it. So when we started developing the Dolphin 7800 some time ago, what we clearly heard from people was that they were asking for they wanted to have the latest technology to get the performance boost, but they were also looking for a more compact form factor, something that could potentially fit into your pocket, but still something that would be rugged. Obviously, most of our customers don't want to take the leap of faith and go with consumer class devices because they know that their use cases are harsh. But they also felt that the traditional fully rugged devices, they were too big and bulky, and people wanted to be more modern, more mobile. Or then you had simply budget issues. So no surprises, we're in a recession and IT budgets have been cut. So while you might want the latest and greatest and the absolute most durability, perhaps your group couldn't afford that one and you were looking for something that was a little bit less expensive than again, the traditional fully rugged devices. So we launched our Dolphin 7800. If you go to the next slide, the offering has been extremely successful. People really like the form factor, they like the durability and the technologies that go in the offering. But very quickly we also started hearing these kind of comments. So people were saying that, well, our employees are actually more familiar with Android and iOS, and especially when we hire younger people, they expect something like Android as a user interface. They wanted something that looked more modern and something that had better usability, especially if you were using the device with your finger. And then, depending on who you are, you might have developers that are coming from university or otherwise are more familiar with Android and the Android development tools. So there's a clear preference in some cases to move to Android. So that of course motivated us to develop our Android offering as well, and then the end result, of course, if you go to the next slide. So sorry, one more build there. So we don't understand Microsoft roadmap. So that was something that especially ISVs, independent software vendors, stated that it was hard for them to build their strategy when they didn't know what was coming after Windows Embedded 6.5. So as I said, then we introduced the Dolphin 7800, and we feel very excited about that offering because, again, as I stated, the form factor is there, the usability is there, and it's still rugged and reliable, won't let users down in the field. And again, going to the next slide, now we're adding you the choice of the familiar Windows Embedded. So don't get me wrong, there are a ton of customers whose software is developed for Windows and they want to continue to use the kind of true and tried operating system. But as I said, while we're here, more and more people are looking at Android. So we'll give you the choice of the two leading operating systems and combining that one with the leading hardware solution that we have. So let's go to the next slide. So here I'm listing some potential benefits of Android, and we covered some of these, and it's important to remember that what I've seen when I'm doing voice of the customer exercises, so there are definitely rational reasons to go with Android, but there are also emotional reasons to go with Android. So some groups have simply stated that, hey, we're going to go with Android, can't really tell you or explain to you why, but we're just going to go with it, so tell me what you have in your portfolio. But if we cover these points, so again, as I stated, everyone, we know that Android looks more modern, and from a usability point of view, it is better optimized for finger touch. Younger employees, as I stated, they are more familiar with the iOS or Android. When you give them a Windows 6.5, the operating system does look a little bit dated, and navigating through the different menus can be difficult. And then again, there are a group of developers who feel that it's easier and faster to develop applications for Android. And no doubt the Android marketplace offers an interesting new route to market to deploy your apps or to reach a wider audience if you're an ISV. And we talked about the roadmap, and we also talked about the fact that the smartphone market is definitely changing the expectations when it comes to the more fully rugged market. If we go to the next slide, so no doubt there are challenges as well with Android. So again, when we meet with customers, many people would state that, well, Android is not enterprise ready. And then when you ask, well, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, it's not secure and it's not manageable. So that's really where we are able to add value. So we solve this issue by having our remote mastermind, which is our remote device management tool. And the beauty here is that we own the hardware, we own our Android build, and we own the remote mastermind software, so we can bundle those three components very tightly together. So there are a ton of companies who say that they can manage Android devices, but the reality is that unless those companies work with the hardware vendor, they will not get access, they will not get root access and access to all the key APIs that you need to truly manage the device. So that's definitely our advantage here. And also the remote mastermind, the beauty of that tool is that you can use the same tool to manage Android devices, Windows devices, even scanners or consumer class offerings. And similarly with the remote mastermind, you can detect rooted devices, for example, and prevent them from accessing the corporate network. So that's really the key part of how we address the question that is Android ready for enterprise use. The other problem that people state is that, well, you have new operating system versions coming up all the time, and the device space is very fragmented. So, of course, for me, the simple message would be, well, buy Honeywell and you don't have to worry about device fragmentation. And also, what we guarantee to you is that with the 7800, with the Dolphin 7800, we'll match the hardware life cycle with the operating system life cycle. So if we say that the hardware is going to be available for 5 years, we'll give you the same operating system for that same 5-year period. So that's something that's very important, especially for larger groups, and something that they have been very happy about, because again, the bottom line is that we own the Android system. We support it and we'll upgrade it if needed, so you don't have to rely on Google. And then finally, the Android marketplace. So while it has certain benefits, some people are also worried that, well, you'll get malware or viruses from there, or that employees are wasting their time playing Angry Birds. So again, with the remote mastermind or with other third-party solutions, you can definitely whitelist and blacklist your applications, or you can hide or disable the marketplace, and that way keep the unit more secure. So if you want, you can go to a kiosk mode, and that will prevent people from changing the device settings, for example, or accessing the Android marketplace. So that's kind of, obviously we have a lot more material on our website, but in the interest of time, I'll encourage you to go there, and in a couple of slides I'll show you the web link. But just as a summary, like I said, we are extremely excited about the 7800 as a form factor, because again, it's durable, it gets the job done. But now with Android, you'll get that modern, familiar user interface, and you can deploy modern applications. But oh, by the way, if Windows is the choice for you, we'll still offer that one. And we feel that we have very good story around the Android being enterprise ready. So with our remote management tool, and combined with the fact that we own the Android life cycle, we can guarantee you that Android is ready for enterprise, and even larger companies are deploying Android, and they feel good about our solution. And of course, as a form factor, again, I don't want to kind of, like I said, there are companies who are looking at consumer class devices. Some of them have very quickly moved back to rugged devices. With the offerings like the 7800 and some of our new up-and-coming offerings, we feel that we're building a very compelling story around why you should stick with the ruggedized devices. So then if you go to the next slide, these are just a couple of links that I wanted to show you. So the first one obviously is our website, where you can find all the devices. There is the hsmcity.com, which is an interesting interactive software tool that allows you to look at different use cases and different verticals and how we solve customer problems there. And then finally, the bottom one, that's a link to a white paper that we did around Android security. So probably pretty good material. And as I said in the beginning, I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions you have today, or answer emails or phone calls later on. We're always eager to learn what's happening in the marketplace. But with that, I thank you for your time, and give it back to Howie for questions and answers.